Night settles gently over the medieval countryside, moving slowly across fields and villages like a soft blanket. The land rests in silence, broken only by the distant call of an owl or the quiet rustle of wind through tall grass. In this world, life follows patterns so old that no one remembers when they began. Days are shaped by sunlight, seasons, and the steady rhythm of work. Nights belong to rest, prayer, and sleep. Most people live close to the earth, not by choice, but by necessity. Villages are small clusters of timber and mud cottages gathered around a church whose bell marks the passing hours. The church stands at the center of life, not just as a place of worship, but as a point of meeting, comfort, and shared understanding. Its stone walls have witnessed generations come and go, each one living much the same as the last. Homes are simple, built with local wood, packed earth floors, and thatched roofs that smell faintly of straw and rain. Inside, warmth comes from a central hearth that burns through most evenings, filling the air with wood smoke. Families share one main room, where cooking, sleeping, and living all take place together. Privacy is rare, but so is loneliness. Life is lived side by side, moment by moment. Beds are rough wooden frames filled with straw, softened only by use. Woolen blankets, hand-woven and heavy, are pulled close at night to keep out the cold. Clothes are worn until they can no longer be repaired. Nothing is wasted, because everything has value. Even silence has weight here, carrying comfort rather than fear. The people of this world wake early, often before sunrise. There are no clocks, no schedules written down. The body knows when it is time to rise. Morning begins with quiet movement, the soft sound of footsteps on packed earth, the gentle breathing of animals nearby. Chickens stir, pigs shift in their pens, and cows wait patiently to be led out to pasture. Work fills the daylight hours. Fields must be tended, fences repaired, tools sharpened. Farming is hard, unending labor, but it is familiar. Hands move almost without thought, guided by habits learned in childhood. Seeds are planted with care, harvested with hope, and stored with gratitude. A good season brings relief. A poor one brings worry, but worry is nothing new. Children grow up quickly. From a young age they learn how to carry water, gather firewood, and watch over animals. Play exists, but it is woven into responsibility. Laughter still finds its way through the village, especially during festivals or market days, when music, food, and shared stories briefly lift the weight of everyday life. Markets are lively places, full of sound and motion. Traders arrive with carts of cloth, salt, grain, and simple tools. News travels this way too, carried by travellers who speak of distant towns and far-off cities. Most of these stories feel unreal, like tales from another world. What matters here is the land, beneath one's feet and the people close at hand. Health is understood in simple terms. Illness is a part of life, as common as hunger or cold. When someone falls sick, neighbours bring food, herbs, and prayers. Local healers offer remedies passed down through generations, teas made from roots, poultices of leaves, whispered charms meant to restore balance. Sometimes these things help, sometimes they do not. This uncertainty is accepted quietly. Faith offers explanation where knowledge cannot. God's will is seen in rain and drought, birth and death. The Church teaches that suffering has meaning, that endurance is rewarded. People listen, not because they are certain, but because belief offers comfort in a world with few answers. Evenings are calmer. As the sun sinks low, work slows and families gather inside. Meals are simple: bread, porridge, perhaps a bit of cheese or salted meat if supplies allow. Conversation is soft and familiar. Stories are told, often the same ones repeated again and again, their endings known but still comforting. Candles flicker against rough walls, casting slow-moving shadows. Outside, darkness deepens. Doors are closed, shutters drawn. The world beyond the village feels distant at night, full of unknowns best left unconsidered. Inside there is warmth, the steady presence of loved ones, and the quiet reassurance of routine. Sleep comes easily to most. Exhaustion is honest and complete after a day of labour. Bodies settle into rest, minds drifting without struggle. Dreams, if they come, are shaped by fields, weather, and familiar faces. Tomorrow will likely be the same as today, and that sameness brings peace. There is no sense that anything is wrong, no sign that the balance of life is fragile. The seasons continue as they always have. Spring brings growth, summer brings labour, autumn brings harvest, and winter brings stillness. Time moves forward gently, without urgency. In this world, the idea of sudden, sweeping change feels impossible. Life is slow, grounded, and deeply rooted in tradition. Generations have lived this way, and generations more are expected to follow. The earth has always provided, the church has always guided, and the village has always endured. As night deepens, the countryside rests fully now. Fires fade to embers, breathing grows steady. The quiet is complete, peaceful and undisturbed. This is a world at rest, unaware of how precious this calm truly is. Europe in the early 1300s feels settled, layered with traditions that have shaped life for centuries. Kingdoms rise and fall, borders shift slowly, but for most people these changes are distant and abstract. What matters is the village, the parish, the land that feeds them. The wider world exists mostly through stories carried by travellers and merchants, softened by distance and time. The landscape is a patchwork of forests, open fields, rivers, and winding dirt roads. Dense woods still cover much of the land, dark and quiet places where people tread carefully. Roads connect towns and cities, but travel is slow and uncertain. A journey of a few dozen miles can take days, sometimes weeks, depending on weather and terrain. Most people are born, live and die within a small circle, never venturing far from home. Cities exist, but they are smaller than those of later centuries. London, Paris, Florence and Venice stand as busy centres of trade and power, their streets narrow and crowded. Houses lean inward over stone lanes, upper floors nearly touching across the way. Markets spill into public squares, filled with voices calling out prices, the clatter of carts, and the smells of fresh bread, animals and refuse. Life presses in tightly here, every inch shared. Outside the cities, the countryside stretches wide and quiet. Villages are scattered and self-contained, each one shaped by its land and lord. Fields are divided into long strips, farmed collectively by families who work side by side. The rhythm of agriculture governs everything. Planting, tending, harvesting and resting repeat year after year, creating a sense of order that feels permanent. Society is arranged in clear layers. At the top sit kings and queens, followed by nobles who own vast tracts of land. Below them are knights and local lords who enforce law and collect rents. At the bottom are peasants, bound to the soil by custom and obligation. This structure is widely accepted, not because it is loved, but because it has always been this way. Change feels unimaginable. The church stands alongside this social order. woven deeply into daily life. Church bells mark time, calling people to prayer at dawn, noon, and dusk. Sundays and holy days bring communities together, offering moments of rest and reflection. Priests guide not only spiritual matters but social ones as well, offering counsel, judgment, and comfort. The Church explains the world in ways that feel reassuring, even when life is hard. Education is rare and precious. Most people cannot read or write, relying instead on memory and spoken word. Knowledge is passed down through stories, songs, and repetition. Those who can read, often clergy or scribes, are regarded with quiet respect. Books are hand-copied treasures, stored carefully and rarely touched. Trade moves slowly but steadily across Europe. Merchant ships cross seas carrying spices, silk, wool, and grain. Caravans move along land routes linking distant regions. Ports buzz with activity as goods are loaded and unloaded, languages blending together in the air. These connections bring wealth and variety, but they also make the world feel larger and more complex than it once did. Homes across Europe reflect local resources. Stone houses appear where rock is plentiful, while timber and mud dominate elsewhere. Roofs are thatched or tiled, depending on means and tradition. Inside, furnishings are sparse but functional. Chests store clothing, tables serve multiple purposes, and benches replace chairs. Everything is built to last, repaired again and again. Food is simple and seasonal. Bread forms the foundation of most meals, accompanied by porridge, vegetables, and occasionally meat. What one eats depends largely on class and location. Peasants rely on what they can grow, while nobles enjoy variety and abundance. Feasts mark special occasions, filling halls with laughter, music, and rich dishes meant to impress and celebrate. Health and cleanliness are understood differently than they will be in later centuries. Bathing happens infrequently, often in rivers or communal baths. Waste is managed imperfectly, especially in cities where refuse is thrown into streets or nearby waterways. These conditions are accepted as part of life, rarely questioned or challenged. Despite hardship, there is resilience here. People endure famine, war, and illness with a quiet strength shaped by necessity. Communities support one another in times of need, sharing food and labor when possible. Weddings, births, and festivals bring joy and continuity, reminding everyone that life goes on. Seasons shape mood as much as labor. Spring brings hope and renewal. Summer offers long days and heavy work. Autumn carries gratitude and preparation. Winter brings cold, darkness, and waiting. Fires burn longer, conversations deepen, and time seems to slow. Stories are a comfort in this world. Tales of saints, heroes, and distant lands are told by hearthlight. They explain suffering, reward virtue, and promise meaning beyond the PR. Escent moment. Listening to them, people feel connected to something larger than themselves. In the early 1300s, Europe feels steady, if not peaceful. Conflicts exist, but they are familiar. Hunger comes and goes, but it is expected. Illness appears, but it is individual, not overwhelming. There is no sense that everything could change at once. Life unfolds quietly across the continent, bound by tradition and routine. The world feels heavy with history, yet calm in its repetition. People sleep at night believing tomorrow will resemble today, and that belief allows rest to come easily. Morning arrives softly in the summer of 1348, carried on pale light that slips through the narrow gaps of a wooden shutter. The world outside is still, resting between night and day. Inside a small cottage on the edge of a village, a farmer stirs from sleep, guided not by a bell or clock, but by habit shaped over a lifetime. The bed is low and rough, built from simple timber and filled with straw that crackles faintly as he moves. The blanket pulled over him is heavy wool, scratched thin in places from years of use. It holds the warmth of the night, mixed with the faint scent of smoke and earth. Sleep lingers for a moment, but the body knows it is time to rise. He sits up slowly, feet finding the cool, packed dirt floor. The chill seeps upward, sharp but familiar. Every morning begins this way, with the quiet acceptance of discomfort. There is no complaint, only movement. Muscles ache from yesterday. A's labour, a dull soreness that never fully fades, only shifts from one place to another. The cottage is a single room, dim in the early light. At one end, embers still glow faintly in the hearth, breathing out a thin ribbon of smoke. Above, the thatched roof hangs low, bundles of straw tied tightly together, darkened by years of soot. When rain comes hard, it leaks in small places, but today the roof holds firm. Nearby, animals stir. A pig grunts softly, sensing the approach of feeding time. Chickens rustle and cluck in their corner, feathers brushing against the low fence that separates them from the family's living space. Their warmth lingers in the air, especially welcome during colder months. Living this close to livestock feels normal, even comforting. His wife sleeps a little longer, wrapped tightly in her blanket. Their child lies curled beside her, breathing slow and steady. He moves quietly, careful not to wake them. Mornings belong to silence, a gentle transition rather than a sudden start. He pulls on his clothes, stiff with wear, a linen shirt patched at the elbows, woolen trousers held up by a simple belt. Leather shoes, worn thin at the soles, wait by the door. Each item is familiar, shaped to his body through years of use. Dressing is quick, almost automatic. Before stepping outside, he pauses at the hearth. With practiced hands, he stirs the embers and adds a small piece of wood. Flames catch slowly, casting warm light across the room. The fire will be red. When the others wake, easing the morning chill, the door opens with a quiet creak, and cool air flows in. Outside, the village rests under a soft grey sky. Mist clings low to the fields, blurring the edges of hedges and paths. The smell of damp earth fills the air, rich and grounding. He steps into the yard, stretching briefly as he looks toward the fields beyond the cottages. Rows of crops stand patiently, leaves dark with dew. The land has been worked by his family for generations, each strip familiar down to the smallest rise and dip. There is pride here, mixed with obligation. The land gives life, but it demands everything in return. The first task of the day is feeding the animals. Grain is scattered carefully, measured to last until the next harvest. Water is drawn from a nearby well, cold and clear, splashing softly into wooden troughs. These small routines anchor the morning, steady and predictable. As the sun rises higher, sounds begin to spread across the village. Doors open, footsteps crunch along dirt paths. A distant cough, the low murmur of voices greeting one another. Life awakens gradually, without urgency. Breakfast is simple, a piece of coarse bread, sometimes dipped in weak ale or water. It fills the stomach just enough to begin the day's work. Meals are fuel, not pleasure, though gratitude accompanies every bite. After eating, he gathers his tools. A sickle hangs from a wooden peg, its blade sharpened the night before. A hoe rests against the wall, handle smoothed by countless hands. These tools are precious. cared for with quiet respect. Without them, the land cannot be worked. The walk to the fields is short, following a path worn smooth by generations of feet. Birds lift from hedges as he passes, their wings flashing briefly in the light. Somewhere nearby, a church bell rings, slow and steady, marking the hour. It is a comforting sound, reminding everyone that time is moving as it always has. Work begins as it always does, with bending and lifting, cutting and gathering. The body settles into rhythm, movements flowing together until thought fades into action. Sunlight warms the back, sweat beads on the skin. The world narrows to the field, the tool, the next task. Around him, others work too. Neighbours move along their own strips of land, exchanging nods or brief words when paths cross. Conversation is minimal this early, saved for later when the day grows long. There is comfort in shared labour, even in silence. The morning passes steadily. Clouds drift overhead, casting slow-moving shadows across the fields. A breeze carries the scent of grass and soil. Nothing feels rushed. Time stretches gently, shaped by the work rather than measured by hours. Thoughts drift as hands continue their task. Concerns about weather, harvest, and obligations surface briefly, then fade. There is always something to worry about, but worry does not stop the work. It is carried quietly like an extra weight already accounted for by mid-morning. The sun stands higher, and the village hums with activity. Smoke rises from chimneys. Children's voices carry faintly on the air. Life moves forward, ordinary and expected. This is how mornings have always been. Wake, work, endure, repeat. There is no sense that today is different from yesterday, or that tomorrow will bring anything unfamiliar. The land waits, the tools answer, and the day unfolds as it should. In the calm of this routine there is peace, a belief, unspoken but deeply held, that the world will continue just as it always has. The morning settles fully into day, and the farmer works on, grounded in the certainty of habit. The cottage stands quietly at the edge of the village, its walls darkened by years of smoke and weather. It is not large, nor finely built, but it is solid and familiar. Timber beams form its frame, filled in with woven branches packed tight with mud and straw. The surface is uneven, cracked in places, yet strong enough to keep out most of the wind. This is home, shaped as much by hands as by time. Inside, the space is modest and shared. There are no separate rooms, only areas defined by habit. One corner holds the hearth, the heart of the home. Another is reserved for sleeping, marked by low wooden frames and bundles of straw. Nearby, animals claim their own space, separated by little more than a fence of rough poles. Everything exists together, layered rather than divided. The hearth is always present, even when unlit. Ash dusts the packed earth floor around it, and the stones are blackened from countless fires. When flames burn, they bring warmth and light, chasing away the damp chill that seeps in from the ground. Smoke curls upward, finding its way through gaps in the roof or a simple hole left open for that purpose. The air smells of wood, earth, and the faint trace of meals long past. Around the fire, life gathers naturally. Cooking happens here, pots suspended over the flames, contents stirred slowly with wooden spoons. Stews simmer for hours, growing richer as vegetables soften and flavours blend. Bread is warmed on stones near the edge of the fire, its crust crackling softly. Meals are simple, but the act of sharing them brings comfort beyond their substance. Light comes sparingly. During the day, it enters through the open door or thin slits between boards. At night, candles or small oil lamps offer a gentle glow. Shadows move slowly along the walls, stretching and shrinking with the flicker of flame. The darkness outside presses close, but inside, light creates a sense of shelter and calm. Furniture is scarce but meaningful. A sturdy table, rough to the touch, serves many purposes, preparing food, mending clothes, sharing meals. Benches line its sides, worn smooth by use. Chests sit against the walls, holding clothing, tools, and the few valued possessions the family owns. Each item has a place, and each place is remembered. The bed is a simple construction, wooden slats supporting sacks of straw. The straw is changed when it becomes too flat or troubled by insects. Blankets are heavy and coarse, woven from wool by patient hands. They itch against the skin, but they hold warmth through long winter nights. Sleep here is deep, shaped by exhaustion and routine. Clothing hangs from pegs or rests folded in chests. Garments are practical, made to last rather than to impress. Patches are sewn carefully over worn spots, thread chosen to match when possible. A repaired shirt carries quiet pride, proof of care and resourcefulness. Sounds within the cottage are soft and familiar. The crackle of firewood, the low murmur of voices, the occasional cluck or snort from animals nearby. Rain on the roof creates a steady rhythm, comforting in its predictability. Wind slips through small openings, carrying with it the scent of fields and forest. Smells linger and blend. Smoke, wool, damp earth, cooked grains and animal presence combine into something neither pleasant nor unpleasant, simply known. It is the smell of life as it is lived, constant and grounding. Evenings are the most comforting time. Work is done, tools set aside. The family gathers close to the hearth, sharing what warmth remains. Stories are told in low voices, often the same ones repeated across generations. There is reassurance in knowing how they end. Mending happens by firelight. A needle passes through cloth slow and steady. Hands work almost without thought, guided by habit. Children listen or doze, heads resting again. And familiar shoulders. Outside, the village grows quiet, doors closing one by one. Comfort here is not luxury. It is the absence of immediate need, a full stomach, a warm fire, a dry roof. These things are enough. They allow the body to relax and the mind to rest, even briefly. In winter, the hearth becomes more than a convenience. It is survival. Fires burn longer, and everyone stays closer together. Animals' warmth adds to the heat, their presence welcomed rather than merely tolerated. Cold nights pass slowly, but they pass. In summer, the door stands open longer, letting in light and air. The hearth is used sparingly, its heat less needed. Even then, it remains the centre, a constant amid seasonal change. Home is not defined by comfort alone, but by familiarity. Every crack in the wall, every uneven board is known. Hands move confidently in the dim, reaching for tools and utensils without looking. This knowledge creates ease, a quiet confidence in one's surroundings. Here, within these simple walls, life feels contained and manageable. The world beyond may be uncertain, but inside, order exists. The hearth glows softly, the air is warm, and for a while, that is enough. Work begins again with the steady certainty of daylight, shaping the hours that follow. In this world, survival is not a distant goal or an abstract idea. It is immediate, woven into every movement of the hands and every decision made from dawn to dusk. Work is life, and life depends on work being done well. Enough, often enough, without pause. The fields demand constant attention. Crops must be weeded, soil turned, fences repaired, and animals tended. Each task has its season, but none truly end. Even when one duty is complete, another waits quietly in its place. The land is generous when treated carefully, but it does not forgive neglect. This understanding lives deep in the body, guiding effort without the need for thought. Labor is shared whenever possible. Men, women, and children all contribute according to their strength and age. A child carries water or gathers sticks. A woman plants, harvests, and manages the household alongside fieldwork. A man shoulders heavier tools and longer hours, though exhaustion belongs to everyone equally. No effort is wasted, because none can be spared. Family is the center of this labor. Survival depends not on the strength of one person, but on the cooperation of many. Each member has a role, learned early and refined over time. Trust grows through shared work, through knowing that others will carry their weight even when tired or hungry. Meals are moments of connection amid long days. They are brief, often eaten where the work happens, but they matter. Sitting together, sharing bread and drink, reinforces the bond that holds the family steady. Conversation is practical, focused on tasks yet to come or concerns already felt. Even silence feels shared rather than empty. Children learn by watching. There are few lessons spoken aloud. Instead, hands guide smaller hands, showing how to tie a bundle, sharpen a blade, or move carefully among animals. Mistakes happen, but they are part of learning. Survival allows little room for indulgence, yet patience still finds a place. The weight of responsibility grows early. A child understands that their work matters, that a missed task can lead to loss. This knowledge is heavy but grounding. It teaches care, attention, and respect for the fragile balance that keeps hunger at bay. Outside the family, the village functions as a wider unit. Neighbors help one another during planting and harvest, sharing labor when it is most needed. These moments strengthen ties, building trust that can be called upon later. Survival is easier when burdens are shared, even briefly. Obligations to the local lord and the church shape work as well. Portions of harvest must be given, days of labor owed. These demands are accepted with little protest, part of the structure of life. Complaints exist, but quietly, expressed in murmurs rather than rebellion. Stability is valued more than fairness. Time feels different here. Days are long, seasons longer still. Progress is measured not by speed but by completion. A field planted, a roof repaired, a child grown stronger. These markers replace numbers and dates, creating a rhythm that feels natural and unforced. Fatigue is constant but familiar. Bodies learn to carry it, adapting rather than resisting. Rest comes when it can, often brief and deeply valued. A moment, leaning on a tool, a shared laugh, a cool breeze passing over sweat-damp skin. These small pauses sustain the spirit as much as the body. Family provides emotional shelter as well as practical support. In moments of worry, there is comfort in shared understanding. Concerns are rarely spoken at length, but they are known. A glance, a sigh, a hand resting briefly on another's shoulder. These gestures speak clearly enough. Illness or injury threatens this balance. When someone cannot work, the strain spreads quickly. Others must take on more, stretching themselves thinner. Yet care is given without question. Survival depends on keeping everyone as whole as possible for as long as possible. At night, exhaustion draws families together again. The day's labour lingers in aching muscles, but there is relief in stopping. Sitting by the hearth, eating what the day has earned, creates a sense of completion. Another day endured, another day survived. Stories told in the evening often centre on perseverance. Tales of ancestors who endured harsh winters, poor harvests, or distant conflicts. These stories reinforce the belief that endurance is possible, even expected. Survival is framed not as triumph but as continuation. Love exists here, though it is rarely spoken aloud. It is shown through effort, through showing up each day, through sharing the weight of work without complaint. Care is practical, expressed through actions rather than words. This kind of love is steady, quiet, and deeply rooted. The future is rarely imagined far ahead. Plans extend to the next season, the next harvest, the next obligation. Thinking too far beyond that feels unnecessary, even unsettling. Survival is best approached one day at a time. In this life, work defines identity. To work well is to fulfill one's place in the world. Family gives that work meaning, transforming labour into purpose. Together, they form the foundation upon which survival rests. As night deepens and sleep comes, bodies rest knowing they have done what was required. Tomorrow will ask the same again, and the family will answer together, as they always have. The first hints of change arrive quietly, carried not by storms or armies, but by words. They move slowly, passing from mouth to mouth, softened and reshaped with each telling. At first, they feel distant and unreal, like stories meant to fill time rather than warn. Life continues as it always has, and there seems no reason it should not. The rumours often begin at the market. Traders arrive from towns farther down the road, their carts heavy with goods and their minds full of news. As they unload grain or cloth, they speak casually of strange events elsewhere. A sickness in a port city, a village where many have fallen ill at once. The tone is uncertain, half dismissed even as it is shared. Listeners pause in their work, just long enough to hear. Someone raises an eyebrow, another shakes their head. Illness is nothing new, they remind themselves. Every year brings fevers, coughs, and unexplained deaths. This sounds no different, merely farther away. Travellers bring details, though they are vague. People speak of ships arriving with crews already sick, of towns where bells ring more often than usual. The descriptions are inconsistent, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes strangely calm. No one agrees on what it is, only that it feels unusual. In the countryside, distance offers comfort. What happens beyond the horizon feels removed from daily life. Roads stretch long and slow between places, and the idea that something unseen could travel them feels unlikely. The land itself seems like a barrier, wide and steady. At home, the rumours are mentioned in passing. Around the hearth, someone recalls hearing that a city far away has closed its gates. Another mentions a merchant who did not return when expected. These thoughts drift into conversation and out again, never settling for long. The church hears these stories too. Priests speak carefully, offering reassurance rather than alarm. They remind their congregations that the world has always known hardship, that faith and patience are the proper response. Prayers are offered for distant souls, a gesture that feels sufficient. In taverns and gathering places, rumours grow more colourful. Some claim the illness comes from foul air, others from poisoned wells or foreign lands. A few whisper that it is a sign of divine anger. These ideas circulate freely, blending fear with imagination. Still, laughter often follows, breaking the tension before it can take root. Most people continue their routines unchanged. Fields must be worked regardless of distant concerns. Animals still need feeding. The sun rises and sets as it always has. There is comfort in this continuity, a belief that as long as daily life remains steady, nothing truly bad can happen. Letters, rare as they are, add to the uncertainty. A message arrives from a relative in another town mentioning sickness but offering little clarity. The words are brief, careful. They suggest concern without explanation. The letter is read, discussed, then folded away, its weight lingering more than its content. Ports and cities feel different. There, the flow of people and goods makes rumors harder to ignore. Ships arrive carrying more than cargo, and streets feel more crowded, more tense. Yet even there, life presses on. Trade does not stop easily, nor does human movement. In villages, the distance from these centres creates a false sense of safety. The fields stretch wide, and the air feels clean and open. It is easy to believe that whatever troubles others will not reach here. The land has always protected those who work it. Some begin to notice changes, subtle and easy to dismiss. A traveller avoids close contact. A merchant leaves sooner than planned. A road seems quieter than usual. These observations are filed away without urgency, overshadowed by immediate concerns. Children overhear fragments of conversation, sensing unease without understanding it. They ask questions, which are answered lightly. There is no desire to burden them with worry, especially over something so uncertain and far away. As weeks pass, the rumours do not fade. Instead, they shift closer. Places once described as distant become more familiar. A town known by name, a road often travelled. The illness, whatever it is, seems to be moving, though no one can say how or why. Even then, the mind resists the idea of true disruption. The world has endured wars, famines, and storms. This feels like another distant challenge, something to be endured elsewhere. The thought that it could arrive here remains difficult to accept. At night, these rumours surface more easily. In the quiet, when work is done and the mind is free to wander, they return. Thoughts linger a little longer. Questions remain unanswered. Still, sleep comes, carried by exhaustion and routine. The land rests as it always has. Fields lie under moonlight, villages settle into darkness, and life continues forward. The rumours remain just that, words without form, drifting on the edges of awareness, not yet demanding attention. For now, distance feels like protection. The world beyond remains separate, and the present moment holds steady. The night passes calmly, and the belief in tomorrow's familiarity remains unshaken. At first, the change is almost invisible, slipping quietly into daily life. Nothing dramatic announces its arrival. The fields still wait to be worked, the animals still call out for food, and the sun rises as it always has. Yet beneath the familiar rhythm, something subtle begins to shift. It starts with hesitation, a pause before a greeting, a step taken slightly farther to the side on a narrow path. These moments are small enough to be overlooked, but they carry a different feeling than before. Where closeness once felt natural, distance now appears without explanation. Someone mentions that a nearby village has grown unusually quiet. Fewer carts pass along the road. A trader fails to appear on market day, his absence noted but not yet questioned deeply. Life goes on, but attention sharpens, listening for signs that were once ignored. Illness appears, as it always has. But now it draws longer looks. A cough lingers too long. A fever rises too quickly. Neighbours speak in lower voices, careful with their words. No one wants to give shape to the unease forming beneath the surface. The church bells begin to ring more often. At first, this is dismissed as coincidence. Death is not new, and bells have always marked its presence. Still, people notice the sound lingering longer in the air, echoing across fields that once absorbed it quietly. In the market, conversations change. Prices are discussed alongside rumours. Goods are handled with more care. Some traders refuse to shake hands, offering awkward nods instead. These gestures feel strange, breaking habits formed over a lifetime. Children sense the difference before they understand it. They are called back indoors sooner. Their wandering is watched more closely. Questions are answered vaguely, reassurance offered without detail. Adults try to protect them from worry, though the worry is already there. At home, evenings feel heavier, stories told by the hearth lose some of their warmth, words trailing off before their endings. Silence stretches longer between sentences. The fire crackles, steady and comforting, yet it cannot fully chase away the tension that settles nearby. A neighbour falls ill. At first it is described gently, as a fever or weakness. Food is left at the door rather than carried inside. Prayers are spoken, but visits are shorter. The usual closeness gives way to caution, unspoken but clearly felt. Days later, another illness follows, then another. Patterns begin to form, faint but unsettling. The timing feels too close, the number too many. People count quietly in their minds, measuring what they see against what they remember. Fear does not arrive all at once. It grows slowly, fed by uncertainty. No one can explain what is happening, and that lack of understanding allows the imagination to wander. Every ache feels suspicious. Every cough demands attention. Work continues, but it feels different now. Hands move with the same motions, yet minds are elsewhere. Conversations in the fields drift toward speculation before being cut short. There is an unspoken agreement not to say too much aloud. The road becomes a plough, ace of watchfulness. Travellers are observed carefully, their clothes, their faces, their mannerisms noted. Some are turned away politely, given reasons that feel thin but necessary. Hospitality, once automatic, becomes conditional. The church responds with more prayers, more gatherings meant to restore calm. Candles flicker in greater numbers, their light reflecting off anxious faces. People bow their heads, seeking comfort in familiar words. Faith offers structure when certainty fails. At night, sleep comes less easily. Bodies are tired, but minds remain alert. Sounds outside feel sharper, more intrusive. A distant shout or the bark of a dog stirs unease. The dark, once restful, now holds questions. Families speak more openly among themselves. Plans are discussed quietly. What if someone becomes ill? Who will tend the fields? How will food be managed? These thoughts are practical, not dramatic, rooted in survival rather than panic. Care changes shape. Where once closeness was the answer, now space becomes a form of protection. Doors remain closed longer. Shared cups are set aside. These adjustments feel unnatural, yet necessary. Adopted slowly and reluctantly, some deny that anything is wrong. They insist this is nothing more than ordinary sickness, that worry is misplaced. Others sense that something deeper is unfolding, something beyond their experience. Between these views, tension settles without resolution. The village feels smaller now, its boundaries drawn tighter. Familiar faces are counted more carefully. Absences are noticed immediately. Each day brings quiet assessment, a mental tally of who is well and who is not. Despite the growing unease, daily rituals persist. Bread is baked, animals fed, fields tended. Routine becomes an anchor, a way to assert control over a world that feels less certain. As long as these tasks continue, hope remains. Children are held a little closer. Conversations soften when they enter the room. Adults try to maintain normalcy, even as their own confidence wavers. Love expresses itself through caution rather than ease. The air itself seems different, though nothing has changed. It carries a weight that was not there before, a sense that the world is listening. Every sound feels amplified, every moment more significant. As days pass, the feeling deepens. Fear does not shout or demand attention. It settles quietly, like dust, covering familiar surfaces until everything looks slightly altered. The village continues, but its innocence begins to fade. Night returns, as it always does, bringing darkness and rest. Fires burn low, doors are secured, and prayers are whispered with greater urgency. Sleep comes in fragments, interrupted by thought rather than noise. The first signs of fear are now present, woven into daily life. They do not yet overwhelm, but they cannot be ignored. Something has shifted, and though its shape remains unclear, its presence is felt by everyone. The world moves forward, step by careful saint. EP carrying its growing unease into the next day. The moment of arrival does not announce itself with certainty. There is no single sound or sign that marks the change. Instead, it comes quietly, settling into the village as if it has always belonged there. Life continues for a time, moving forward out of habit rather than confidence, while something unseen takes hold. It begins with one household. A man who does not rise from his bed in the morning, a woman whose strength fades too quickly for a simple fever. Neighbours notice, offering help from a careful distance. Food is left at the door. Water is drawn and placed nearby. Voices speak softly through wood and air. The illness moves faster than expected. What once unfolded over weeks now shifts in days. Another home grows quiet, then another. The pattern is no longer faint enough to dismiss. People stop pretending they do not see it. The church bells ring again, their sound heavier now, no longer blending into the background of daily life. Each toll lingers, stretching across fields and rooftops, carrying a message that needs no words. People pause in their work, heads lifting, hands stilling, counting the sound without meaning to. Fear sharpens into awareness. This is no ordinary sickness. It does not move like others before it. It does not respect age or strength. The young fall ill alongside the old. The strong weaken as quickly as the frail. No explanation offers comfort. Doors close more often. Shutters are drawn early. In the evening, the village paths grow quieter, their familiar rhythms broken. Where footsteps once crossed freely, now they hesitate, rerouting instinctively to avoid closeness. Care becomes careful. Those who tend the sick do so with trembling resolve, driven by love and duty rather than hope. They speak gently, offering water, adjusting blankets, wiping brows. Each visit carries weight, balanced between compassion and fear. Homes that once glowed with evening light now sit dark and still. Smoke rises less often from chimneys. The smell of cooking fades, replaced by a silence that feels unnatural. The village seems to hold its breath. Work in the fields continues unevenly. Some crops are left untended as hands are drawn elsewhere or fall still entirely. Neighbours step in when they can, working extra strips of land without being asked. Survival demands cooperation even as closeness becomes dangerous. The market ceases to feel safe. Traders stop arriving. Stalls remain empty. The flow of goods slows to a trickle, then nearly stops. What remains is shared carefully, measured against the unknown length of what lies ahead. Inside homes, families gather closer together, both physically and emotionally. Conversations are quieter, more deliberate. Plans are discussed in hushed tones. Who will fetch water? Who will tend the animals if someone falls ill? These questions carry urgency without answers. Children are kept indoors, their play restricted to corners and shadows. They see the seriousness of the moment, adapting quickly, speaking less, listening more. Comfort comes through presence rather than explanation. The church offers structure amid the confusion. Prayers are spoken daily, sometimes multiple times. Candles burn longer. The familiar words feel different now, carrying desperation alongside devotion. People cling to ritual because it is known, because it gives shape to fear. Some seek reasons. They search for patterns, causes, meaning. Ideas circulate quietly. Bad air, divine punishment, distant lands bringing misfortune. None of these explanations offer relief. Knowing why matters less than knowing how to endure. The sick are isolated when possible, though the concept feels cruel. Walls that once represented shelter now become barriers. Loved ones are separated by doors and distance, speaking through gaps, listening for breath on the other side. Time begins to blur. Days lose their distinct edges, marked instead by absence and quiet. Morning feels heavier. Evening comes too quickly. Sleep, when it arrives, is shallow, filled with half-waking thoughts. The sounds of the village change. Where once there were voices, laughter, and animals calling out, now there is mostly wind and the creak of wood settling. Even the birds seem fewer, their songs less frequent. Those who remain well move carefully, conserving strength. They eat when they can, rest when allowed, and work with urgency rather than routine. Survival feels fragile, dependent on shu. Choices that must be made without guidance. Kindness persists, reshaped but not erased. A loaf of bread left anonymously. A bucket of water placed silently near a door. These gestures pass without acknowledgement, understood without words. Loss becomes a presence, heavy and unavoidable. Each household feels its weight differently, but none escape it entirely. Grief is private, contained, expressed through quiet moments rather than ceremony. Despite everything, the sun continues to rise. Light spills across fields and rooftops, indifferent to human suffering. This constancy feels both comforting and cruel, a reminder that the world moves on regardless. Evenings draw people inward. Fires burn low. Conversations shorten. Eyes linger on familiar faces, memorizing them without realizing it. There is a desire to hold on to what remains, to anchor oneself in the present. The plague has arrived, though no one names it yet with certainty. It exists in actions rather than words, shaping behavior, reshaping life. The village is no longer the same place it was, though its shape remains unchanged. As night settles once more, doors are secured and prayers whispered with new urgency. Sleep comes slowly, if at all. The darkness holds more than rest now. It holds the knowledge that tomorrow may bring further change. Still, people endure. They breathe, they wait, they care when they can. Life narrows to its most essential elements, stripped of comfort and assumption. In this narrowing, survival comes both the goal and the act itself. The plague does not roar or demand attention. It settles, quiet and relentless, altering the world without ceremony. And the village caught within it learns to live differently, one careful day at a time. When illness spreads beyond understanding, people turn instinctively toward healing. They reach for what has always offered comfort, even when comfort is all it can give. In this time, medicine exists not as certainty, but as hope shaped by tradition, belief, and careful observation. Healers are respected figures in the village, though their knowledge is limited by the world they know. Some are trained through apprenticeships, learning from older practitioners who pass down methods refined over decades. Others rely on experience and intuition, gathering herbs from fields and forests, trusting what has helped before. Treatments begin gently. Teas brewed from leaves and roots are offered to ease weakness. Poultices are pressed against aching skin, their scent strong and earthy. Warm cloths are laid across foreheads, changed patiently throughout the day. These acts carry care and intention, even when results remain uncertain. Doctors in larger towns offer more formal approaches. They study ancient texts written centuries earlier and follow teachings that explain the body through balance. Health, they believe, depends on harmony within, and illness signals imbalance. Restoring order becomes the goal, though how to do so varies widely. Bloodletting is sometimes practiced, believed to release what harms the body. Other treatments involve carefully measured diets or changes in routine. Patients are advised to avoid certain foods, to breathe fresh air, to keep warm or cool depending on the moment. Each recommendation is delivered with confidence, though outcomes remain unpredictable. Herbs hold special importance. Knowledge of plants is widespread, especially among women who tend gardens and gather from nearby woods. Chamomile, sage, garlic, and countless others are prepared in careful combinations. The act of preparing them is almost ritualistic, hands moving with precision learned over years. Faith weaves itself into healing as well. Prayers are spoken alongside remedies, saints invoked for protection and relief. Holy water is sprinkled gently, blessings offered quietly. For many, spiritual care feels as essential as physical treatment, offering reassurance when the body falters. Despite effort, recovery remains rare. Some show brief signs of improvement, moments of strength that raise fragile hope. These moments are watched closely, interpreted as signs that the right treatment has been found. Yet hope often fades as quickly as it appears. The lack of clear answers weighs heavily. Healers work tirelessly, trying different approaches, adjusting mixtures, listening closely to each change in condition. Their faces show strain, though they speak calmly, unwilling to admit uncertainty aloud. Families cling to these efforts. They watch every movement, every breath, searching for signs that treatment is working. The smallest improvement feels monumental, a sip of water taken without difficulty, a few words spoken clearly. These moments are treasured, remembered. Some treatments are preventative, meant to protect the healthy. Homes are filled with strong-smelling herbs believed to purify the air. Windows are opened when weather allows. Fires are kept burning, smoke drifting through rooms as a form of defense. These practices bring a sense of control, even if their effectiveness is unclear. Advice spreads quickly, passed from one household to another. What helped in one case is tried in the next. Variations emerge, shaped by availability and belief. No one questions these exchanges because sharing knowledge feels necessary, even urgent. The Church offers guidance alongside medicine. Clergy encourage repentance, prayer, and acts of charity, believing moral health influences physical well-being. Confession becomes more frequent, hearts laid bare in hopes of relief. These practices bring structure to chaos, something familiar to hold on to. In larger cities, universities and medical centers struggle openly. Learned men debate causes and cures, writing letters, arguing theories. Some believe the illness is carried by the air itself, poisoned by unseen forces. Others blame distant lands or celestial events. None can prove their claims. This confusion filters down to villages, distorted and simplified. People accept what aligns with their experience, rejecting what feels distant or impractical. Knowledge becomes local, shaped by observation rather than theory. As days pass, frustration grows quietly. Healers feel the weight of expectation, the burden of being asked for answers they do not have. Still, they continue, driven by duty and compassion rather than confidence. Care changes in small ways. Treatments become gentler, focused more on comfort than cure. Clean cloths, quiet rooms, steady presence. Sometimes, simply sitting nearby feels like the most honest response. Families learn to recognize the limits of medicine. They shift their hopes from recovery to peace, from cure to ease. This adjustment is slow and painful, but necessary. Acceptance does not come easily, but it comes. The village observes these changes together. People notice which treatments seem to help, which do not. They adjust expectations quietly, without formal agreement. Medicine becomes less about solutions and more about accompaniment. Despite the lack of answers, healing practices persist. They are part of life's rhythm, offering structure when certainty is gone. Preparing remedies, speaking prayers, tending the ill. These acts give purpose to those who feel powerless. Night after night, fires burn low as healers move from home to home. Their footsteps are familiar sounds in the darkness. They carry bundles of herbs, bowls of water, words meant to soothe. Even when outcomes remain unchanged, their presence matters. In the absence of understanding, effort itself becomes meaningful. To try is better than to stand idle. To care is better than to withdraw completely. These beliefs guide action, shaping responses in a world without clear direction. Medicine, stripped of answers, becomes an expression of humanity. It reflects the desire to help, to ease suffering, to remain connected even when fear presses close. It does not conquer the illness, but it holds people together. As time moves on, the village adapts to this reality. Expectations shift, but compassion remains. Healers continue their work, families continue their care, and life narrows around these acts of quiet persistence. In this space between hope and acceptance, people endure. They do not find answers, but they find ways to continue, guided by care rather than certainty. As understanding falters, faith steps forward to fill the space left behind. It does not arrive suddenly, but it deepens, settling more firmly into daily life. What was once routine becomes essential, and familiar rituals take on new weight. The church doors open more often now. Candles are lit earlier in the day and left burning longer into the N. The stone walls, worn smooth by centuries of touch, seem to hold the gathered prayers within them. People enter quietly, heads bowed, movements slow and deliberate. Prayer becomes constant rather than scheduled. Words once spoken only on holy days now rise daily, whispered in homes, fields and streets. Some prayers are memorized, passed down through generations. Others are spontaneous, shaped by fear and hope in equal measure. The priest's voice carries across the congregation, steady and practiced. He speaks of endurance, humility and trust. His sermons do not promise relief, but they offer meaning. Suffering is framed as a trial, something to be borne with patience rather than questioned. Confession grows more frequent. People kneel behind screens or before the altar, speaking softly of regrets, both small and large. There is comfort in release, in naming fears and faults aloud. Forgiveness feels tangible, a weight lifted if only briefly. Processions move through the village slowly, ordered and solemn. Men, women and children walk together, candles held carefully, their flames trembling in the open air. Hymns rise and fall in unison, voices blending into something larger than any one person. These processions follow familiar paths, circling fields, passing homes, stopping at crosses set at the edges of the village. The act of walking together feels powerful, a visible expression of unity. Even those watching from doorways feel included, connected by shared belief. Relics are carried with reverence. Small objects, believed to hold sacred power, are wrapped in cloth and displayed briefly. People reach out as they pass, fingertips brushing fabric or wood. The gesture is quiet, personal, filled with longing. Children walk alongside their elders, their expressions serious. They imitate the movements they have seen since infancy, learning through repetition. Faith becomes a language they speak without fully understanding, shaped by the emotions surrounding them. At home, prayer fills the spaces left by conversation. Families gather by the hearth, hands clasped, heads bowed. The fire crackles softly as words are spoken in low voices. These moments offer structure to evenings that might otherwise feel unmoored. Some prayers ask for protection, others ask for forgiveness or strength. Many simply ask for understanding, though no answer is expected. The act of asking itself brings comfort, a sense of being heard even in silence. The church bell marks these rhythms, calling people together again and again. Its sound carries far across the fields, steady and unwavering. It becomes a signal of reassurance as much as mourning, reminding everyone that they are not alone. Faith also shapes behavior. Acts of charity increase, food shared more freely among those still able. Helping others becomes a way of expressing belief, turning prayer into action. These gestures are quiet, often anonymous, but deeply felt. Some seek signs in scripture, reading passage with renewed attention. Words once skimmed now hold deeper meaning. Verses about endurance and mercy are repeated, their familiarity offering solace. Doubt exists alongside devotion. Quiet questions surface in moments of exhaustion. Why now? Why here? These thoughts are rarely spoken aloud, held privately to avoid unsettling others. Faith is not certainty, but commitment despite uncertainty. Processions continue even as participation thins. Those who can walk do so, representing those who cannot. Empty spaces are noticed but not remarked upon. Absence becomes part of the ritual, acknowledged through silence. The rhythm of prayer shapes the days. Morning prayers greet the light. Evening prayers close the door on the day's worries. Night prayers are whispered before sleep, words trailing off as exhaustion takes hold. In moments of fear, people turn instinctively toward familiar gestures, making the sign of the cross, touching a rosary, whispering a saint's name. These actions require little thought, offering immediate comfort. Faith does not remove danger, but it reframes it. It provides a story in which suffering has purpose, even if that purpose remains hidden. This belief allows people to continue, to face each day without being overwhelmed. The village becomes quieter but more focused. Sound gives way to intention. Each prayer, each step in procession feels deliberate. The world narrows around these acts of devotion. As days pass, faith settles into the background of Eve. Writhing. It informs choices, steadies hands, softens fear. It does not solve the crisis, but it offers a way through it, one ritual at a time. Night falls again, and candles are extinguished one by one. The scent of wax lingers in the air. Doors close, prayers end, and sleep comes to those who can find it. Faith remains, present even in rest. In this time of uncertainty, prayer becomes both anchor and shelter. It holds the community together, giving shape to fear and offering cue. The change in the streets happens gradually, almost gently, as though the village is choosing quiet rather than being forced into it. At first, the difference is subtle. A door that stays closed longer than usual, a path that sees fewer footsteps by midday. The world does not stop all at once, it slows. Morning still arrives with light spilling over rooftops, but fewer people greet it outdoors. Windows remain shuttered, smoke rises from fewer chimneys. The familiar sounds of waking life, voices calling, animals being led out, carts rolling, fade into the background, replaced by a deeper stillness. Paths that once carried constant movement now lie empty for long stretches. Footprints linger in the dirt longer, undisturbed. Grass begins to reclaim the edges of roads, bending softly in the breeze. The village looks the same, yet feels profoundly different. Markets no longer gather crowds. Stalls stand unattended, their wooden frames weathering in the open air. A basket left behind sits untouched, its Conte. NTS slowly spoiling. The exchange of goods and words ceases, leaving space where noise once lived. In towns and cities, streets narrow under the weight of absence. Stone walls echo differently without footsteps and conversation. The clatter of daily commerce disappears, leaving behind only the sound of wind moving through alleys and courtyards. Homes become islands. Each household turns inward, focusing on its own survival. Visits are rare and brief, often conducted from doorways rather than inside. Voices are kept low, as if sound itself might carry risk. Animals wander more freely. Dogs roam unattended, noses to the ground, moving through spaces once crowded with people. Chickens cross paths without being chased away. Even livestock sense the change, responding to the altered rhythm of care. Children's laughter, once scattered throughout the day, becomes scarce. When it does appear, it feels out of place, quickly hushed. Play gives way to waiting, to staying close, to observing the quiet that surrounds them. The church remains one of the few places where sound still gathers, though even there it is muted. Prayers are spoken softly, Hymns sung without full voice. The echo of words in the empty space feels heavier, more deliberate. Travel slows almost to a halt. Roads connecting villages and towns grow quiet, their ruts and stones left undisturbed. Travellers who do appear are noticed immediately, watched from behind doors and shutters until they pass. The absence of movement brings a strange clarity. Sounds carry farther. A single cough echoes down a lane. The creak of a door opening draws attention. Even the rustle of leaves feels amplified in the still air. Work adjusts to this silence. Fields are tended by fewer hands, and the sounds of labour spread thinly across open land. A sickle cutting grain rings out sharply, its rhythm standing alone where once many worked side by side. Time feels stretched. Without the usual markers of activity, days blend together. Morning and evening are distinguished by light rather than by events. The quiet creates a sense of waiting, as though the village is holding itself still. Some streets are avoided entirely. Doors remain closed, paths unwalked. These spaces take on a presence of their own, heavy and unspoken. People reroute their steps instinctively, guided by shared understanding rather than instruction. Windows become points of observation. Curtains shift slightly as eyes look out, checking for movement, listening for sound. The act of watching replaces the act of participating, turning life outward while bodies remain inside. Despite the silence, signs of care persist. Food appears on thresholds. Water buckets are left near doors. These offerings are placed without announcement, noticed later, accepted quietly. Even in stillness, connection survives. The nights feel especially quiet. Without the low hum of evening activity, darkness settles fully. Sounds from beyond the village, wind, distant animals, the movement of trees become more noticeable, filling the absence left by human presence. The moonlight reveals empty roads, casting pale shapes where people once stood. Shadows stretch across doorways, unmoving. The village looks like a memory of itself, preserved but hollow. Yet the silence is not empty. It is filled with thought, with attention, with restrained fear. People listen more closely now, not just to their surroundings but to their own bodies and breaths. This quiet changes behaviour. Movements are careful, deliberate. Doors are opened slowly, steps measured. The silence demands respect, shaping actions without spoken rules. Over time, the stillness becomes familiar. It is no longer startling, just another condition to adapt to. People learn how to live within it, how to move through days shaped by absence rather than activity. The streets remain, patient and unchanged in form. They wait as they always have, stretching between homes and fields. Their silence is not permanent, though it feels endless in the moment. For now the village exists in this muted state, wrapped in quiet. The streets that once carried life now carry stillness instead, holding the weight of all that is missing and all that remains. Yet strength when answers remain beyond reach. The strain first appears in small ways, almost unnoticed at the beginning. A place at the table left empty for a meal or two, a voice missing from the evening conversation. At first, these absences feel temporary, somewhat hing that will be corrected with time. Soon they begin to linger. Families that once moved together through the day now feel uneven, their rhythms disrupted. One person rises while another remains still. Work is divided differently, responsibilities shifting without discussion. The structure that held everything in balance weakens quietly. Illness changes how people relate to one another. Where closeness once meant comfort, it now carries risk. Loved ones keep distance even as their concern deepens. Touch, once natural, becomes rare and hesitant. Hands hover, then fall back. Homes grow quieter as voices fade. Conversations shorten, reduced to what is necessary. Laughter disappears first, then casual talk. Silence settles between family members, filled with thoughts they struggle to share. Children feel the changes sharply. They notice when routines break, when parents move more slowly, when familiar reassurances sound strained. Questions are asked gently, often answered with soft deflection. Understanding comes without words. Caregiving reshapes daily life. One person may become the center of attention, drawing energy and time away from everything else. Others step into unfamiliar roles, learning quickly how to manage tasks once handled by someone now absent. Sleep becomes irregular. Nights stretch long as worry replaces rest. People listen for breathing, for movement, for signs of strength or weakness. Even in sleep, attention remains half awake. Loss does not arrive with ceremony. It enters quietly, often in the early hours, leaving behind a stillness that feels unreal. The moment after is heavy, suspended between disbelief and acceptance. There is no clear boundary between before and after, only a gradual realization that something has changed forever. Grief expresses itself differently for each person. Some withdraw, moving through days in silence. Others keep busy, filling every moment with work. Tears are rare but deeply felt, shared in private corners rather than shared openly. Practical needs follow quickly. Fields still need tending. Animals still require care. Meals must be prepared. Life presses forward even when hearts are unprepared. Survival allows little pause for mourning. Families are forced to separate in other ways as well. Children may be sent to stay with relatives if parents fall ill. Spouses may live apart within the same home, divided by walls and fear. These separations feel unnatural, imposed by necessity rather than choice. Memories surface unexpectedly. A familiar task recalls a shared moment. An empty bed speaks louder than words. Ordinary objects gain new weight, holding presence through absence. Community support continues quietly. Neighbors step in to help where families cannot manage alone. Assistance is offered without expectation of return, recognizing that roles may reverse at any time. The structure of family life shifts permanently. Responsibilities once shared now fall to fewer hands. Older children grow EUs quickly, stepping into adult roles without guidance. The sense of protection that once surrounded them thins. Even when illness passes through a household without taking everyone, it leaves marks behind. Relationships feel altered, shaped by fear and loss. The ease that once existed does not return easily. Evenings are the hardest. With work finished, there is nothing to distract from absence. The hearth burns low as people sit quietly, minds drifting toward what is missing rather than what remains. Stories are no longer told as often. Words feel insufficient, memories too sharp. Silence becomes the safer choice, a shared understanding that needs no explanation. Yet love persists, even fractured. It shows itself in continued care, in endurance, in the refusal to abandon responsibility despite exhaustion. Families hold together what remains, piece by piece. The concept of family itself begins to expand. Neighbors become kin through shared experience. Bonds form across households, shaped by mutual loss and survival. These connections do not replace what was lost, but they provide new support. Children adapt in quiet ways. They watch closely, learning from behavior rather than instruction. Their understanding of the world grows heavier, shaped by absence and resilience alike. Days move forward unevenly. Some feel almost normal, others unbearably heavy. Progress is measured not in recovery, but in endurance. Another meal shared, another night passed. Families are torn apart. Not always by distance, but by change. The people remain, but the shape of the family shifts, altered by what has been taken and what must continue. Through this fragmentation, life persists. What remains is held carefully, protected fiercely. Love does not disappear, but it learns new forms, quieter and more restrained. The village carries these changes collectively, each household marked differently, but bound by similar experience. Families endure, reshaped rather than erased, learning how to exist within a world that no longer offers certainty. Isolation begins not as a decision, but as a quiet adjustment. Doors are closed more often. Visits are postponed, then forgotten. People learn to exist within smaller spaces, narrowing their worlds to what lies inside their own walls. Homes become boundaries. The threshold marks a line between safety and uncertainty. Crossing it is done with care, sometimes delayed until necessity demands it. The outside world feels altered, unpredictable, while the inside grows familiar and contained. Daily routines shrink, tasks are simplified, focused only on what must be done. Time once spent in conversation or shared labor is redirected inward, filled with observation and waiting. The pace of life slows, shaped by caution. Food preparation changes. Meals are smaller, more deliberate. Ingredients are stretched carefully, planned to last longer than intended. Eating becomes less about comfort and more about continuity. Water is fetched less often, stored more carefully. Everything that enters the home is considered, examined, cleaned as best as knowledge allows. Even without understanding the cause, people sense the need for restraint. Communication shifts to distance. Words are exchanged from doorways across yards through open windows. Voices carry carefully, never raised. Faces are seen without closeness. Expressions read from afar. Isolation affects the mind as much as the body. Thoughts grow louder in the absence of distraction. Memories surface easily, uninvited. The quiet allows fear to expand, but also leaves room for reflection. People listen closely to their own bodies. Every ache, every change is noted. Attention turns inward, becoming a constant assessment of strength and weakness. Sleep is light, easily disturbed by thought. Children adapt by mirroring adults. They learn to stay still, to occupy themselves quietly. Games become solitary, invented within small spaces. Their understanding of safety reshapes around stillness. Work continues in modified form. Fields are tended alone or with minimal help. Tools are used in silence. The rhythm of labor becomes personal rather than shared, measured by necessity rather than time. The absence of social life removes both burden and comfort. There are fewer demands, fewer expectations. At the same time, there is little relief from worry. Each person carries their concerns without communal release. Faith becomes private. Prayers are spoken alone, whispered rather shared. Spiritual routines are maintained within the home, adapted to solitude. Belief becomes a personal anchor rather than a collective expression. Nighttime deepens the sense of separation. Without evening gatherings, darkness feels more complete. Lamps burn longer, casting steady light that fills the space with quiet reassurance. Sounds from outside gain significance. Footsteps, distant voices, the call of an animal. Each noise is evaluated, its meaning considered. Silence between sounds stretches long. Isolation teaches patience. Days pass slowly, measured by light and shadow rather than activity. Waiting becomes a skill practiced without guidance. People learn to conserve not just supplies but energy. Movements are efficient, unnecessary tasks avoided. Rest is valued, taken when possible, protected. Despite separation, care persists. Food may be left outside a door, water placed where it can be reached without contact. These gestures are simple, intentional, deeply meaningful. Isolation also creates distance within households. People separate sleeping spaces, adjust habits to reduce closeness. Even inside, boundaries form, shaped by caution. Time in solitude alters perception. Moments feel elongated, memories compressed. The past feels closer, the future less defined. Life narrows to the present. Some find comfort in routine. Repeating tasks in the same order provides structure, a sense of control. Predictability becomes a form of safety. Others struggle with the liar chill of dawn. Those who wake notice first the quiet, then the fact that they are still here. Survival feels less like triumph and more like continuation. People step outside cautiously, testing the world beyond their doors. The air feels the same, yet different. Familiar sights appear altered, shaped by absence rather than presence. Empty spaces draw the eye. Work resumes slowly. Fields that went untended are returned to, weeds pulled back by patient hands. Tools are lifted again, though the movements feel heavier, shaped by memory and fatigue. The population is thinner. Faces once known are missing, their absence felt even when not consciously acknowledged. Conversations pause where names might have been spoken. Silence fills the gaps. Homes are rearranged. Rooms once used by many now hold fewer people. Beds are moved, spaces repurposed. The physical layout of life adjusts to match the emotional landscape. Those who remain carry stories within them. Experiences shared during the worst days create quiet bonds. Words are often unnecessary. Understanding passes through glances and gestures. Children grow in noticeable ways. They take on responsibility early, learning tasks out of necessity. Their seriousness contrasts with the smallness of their years. Meals are simpler but shared with intention. Food, though scarce, is appreciated more deeply. Each gathering feels deliberate, a reminder of connection that survived. Trade resumes in careful steps. Goods exchange hands agger. Though trust builds slowly. Markets reform in smaller shapes, quieter but functional. The church regains its role as a gathering place, though attendance remains subdued. Faith carries both comfort and unanswered questions. Prayer continues without certainty. Physical strength returns unevenly. Some recover quickly, others move slowly, bodies marked by illness and stress. Rest is valued where once it was overlooked. Land changes ownership as families vanish and others absorb responsibility. Fields expand, boundaries shift. The social order adjusts, shaped by necessity rather than tradition. There is opportunity in survival, though it is not sought. Labour becomes more valued, wages rise in some places. Those who remain find themselves in demand, though the cost was high. Despite change, fear lingers. People remain watchful, alert to signs of return. Caution becomes instinct rather than rule. Evenings remain quiet. Entertainment is minimal. Reflection common. People sit together without speaking much, sharing space rather than conversation. Memories surface unexpectedly. A path walked alone recalls shared journeys. A familiar task brings back voices no longer heard. Grief moves quietly through daily life. Community support strengthens. With fewer people, reliance on one another grows. Cooperation becomes essential, replacing former divisions. Nature continues without pause. Seasons change as they always have, indifferent to human loss. This continuity brings both comfort and the workforce earlier, learning through practice rather than tradition. Their skills develop quickly, shaped by immediate need. Opportunities arise unevenly. Some find stability and advancement, others struggle with increased workload. Survival remains demanding, even as possibilities open. Guilds and associations adjust slowly. Membership rules bend under pressure. Skill matters more than lineage or tradition. Despite these changes, fear of overreaching persists. People hesitate to demand too much, aware of uncertainty. Gains feel fragile, dependent on continued survival. The balance between work and rest shifts. Exhaustion is common, but so is a sense of purpose. Labor carries meaning beyond obligation. Communities rebuild with practical focus. Buildings are repaired where needed, abandoned where not. Resources are allocated carefully. This period marks a quiet turning point. Social structures begin to loosen, shaped by necessity rather than design. Change emerges without declaration. Those who remain do not speak of opportunity in hopeful terms. It is simply part of adaptation, another response to loss. The past way of life does not return. Instead, a modified version takes hold, thinner but more flexible. People adjust expectations accordingly. Labor becomes not just a duty, but a form of security. Work connects individuals to community, offering both sustenance and belonging. As days pass, new routines settle in. Work continues, different but persistent. Life reshapes itself around available hands. The world feels altered, yet functional. From absence, a new balance forms, imperfect but workable. Through effort and adjustment, survivors find a path forward. Labor, once taken for granted, now carries weight and possibility, shaping the next chapter of life in a changed world. The change does not arrive all at once. It settles slowly, almost invisibly, woven into daily life until the world no longer resembles what came before. People continue to wake, work and sleep, but beneath these familiar motions, something fundamental has shifted. Europe emerges altered in its balance. The land is the same, the seasons still turn, yet the relationship between people and their world feels different. Absence has created space, and that space reshapes everything. Villages grow smaller, quieter. Some disappear entirely, reclaimed by fields and forest. Others endure, adapting their size and purpose to match the number of lives remaining. Maps change without being redrawn, reshaped by use rather than design. The idea of work transforms. Labor is no longer endlessly available, no longer cheap or easily replaced. Those who work understand their value in new ways, even if they never speak of it aloud. Effort gains recognition through necessity. Social structures loosen. Old hierarchies strain under pressure, no longer held firmly by numbers alone. Authority must negotiate rather than command. Influence shifts quietly from tradition toward practicality. Landau. Nurship becomes fluid. Fields once tied to a single family pass to others. Boundaries blur as land consolidates or fragments based on who can maintain it. The connection between people and place grows more flexible. Cities change their character. Crowded streets thin, allowing air and light to reach spaces once packed tight. Commerce slows, then rebuilds in altered forms. Trade networks adjust, smaller but more deliberate. The experience of loss leaves a lasting mark on belief. Faith remains, but it is altered, shaped by unanswered questions and personal reflection. People pray differently now, with less certainty and more intimacy. Medicine remains limited, yet curiosity grows. The failure of old explanations leaves room for observation, for questioning. Knowledge advances slowly, driven by memory of helplessness. The sense of time changes. Life feels less guaranteed, more fragile. Plans extend shorter distances into the future. The present gains importance simply because it exists. Art and storytelling shift tone. Themes of mortality, endurance, and humility appear more often. Creativity becomes a way to process what cannot be fully understood. Family structures evolve. With fewer relatives to rely on, communities fill the gaps. The idea of kin expands beyond blood, shaped by shared survival. Education becomes more practical. Skills are valued over theory. Learning happens through doing, shaped by immediate need rather than tradition. The economy adjusts unevenly. Some regions recover quickly, others lag behind. Inequality persists, but its form changes, influenced by labor scarcity rather than abundance. Migration increases. People move not just for survival, but for opportunity. This movement blends cultures slowly, quietly, reshaping regional identities. The relationship with death changes profoundly. It becomes familiar, ever-present, yet less dramatic. People accept its closeness without surrendering to it. Rituals adapt. Funerals simplify. Celebrations become restrained. Life's milestones continue, but with quieter acknowledgement. The memory of the plague persists across generations. Stories are passed down, shaping behavior long after the danger fades. Caution becomes instinct. Governance responds in small ways. Rules emerge to manage labor, movement, and order. Authority adapts to a population that cannot be easily controlled through force alone. Nature feels closer. With fewer people pressing against the land, forests advance, wildlife spreads. The environment asserts itself gently, reclaiming space. Technology progresses subtly. Tools improve incrementally, driven by need to do more with fewer hands. Efficiency becomes essential. The plague alters Europe's pace. Life slows, then finds a new rhythm. The relentless pressure of population eases, replaced by measured growth. Despite devastation, creativity persists. Music, art, and craft continue, shaped by quieter spaces and deeper reflection. Trust becomes cautious but meaningful. Relat. Iron ships carry weight, built slowly. Connection feels precious, no longer assumed. The world after the plague is not better or worse in simple terms. It is different, shaped by loss and adaptation. What changes most is understanding. People recognize limits more clearly of bodies' knowledge and control. This awareness humbles but also grounds. Europe carries forward this transformation quietly. There is no declaration of a new era, only gradual realization. The plague fades into memory, but its influence remains embedded in structures, beliefs, and habits. It becomes part of the foundation upon which future generations build. Life continues, altered yet persistent. From devastation comes reshaping rather than ending. Europe moves forward, carrying the imprint of survival into everything that follows. Memory settles into the landscape quietly. It does not announce itself, nor does it demand attention. It lingers in familiar paths, in the shape of buildings, in habits that persist long after their original purpose fades. People carry it within them, often without realizing how deeply it guides their movements. Fear remains present, though softened by time. It no longer grips every thought, but it has not disappeared either. It lives in caution, in hesitation, in the way people pause before gathering too closely. This fear is not loud, it is measured and restrained. Survivors learn to live alongside memory rather than against it. They do not constantly revisit the worst moment. But they do not forget them either. Remembering becomes a form of awareness, a quiet acknowledgement of vulnerability. Stories pass between generations carefully. Elders speak of the past without dramatizing it, focusing on lessons rather than details. The telling is gentle, intended to inform rather than frighten. Children listen, sensing the weight beneath the calm tone. Places hold meaning. A field left untouched recalls absence. A rebuilt home carries the echo of what once stood there. These reminders are accepted as part of the environment, neither avoided nor emphasized. Fear reshapes behavior in subtle ways. People value cleanliness more, though without full understanding. They pay closer attention to seasons and health. Signs of illness are noticed sooner, discussed more seriously. At the same time, resilience grows stronger. The act of surviving builds confidence that life can continue even under strain. This resilience does not express itself through boldness, but through steadiness. Communities rely on routine to ground themselves. Repetition offers reassurance. Familiar tasks performed daily provide structure, reminding people that the world still operates by recognizable patterns. Faith evolves alongside memory. Belief becomes less rigid, more personal. Prayer is offered with humility, shaped by the understanding that not all outcomes can be controlled or explained. Fear influences relationships. People choose their connections carefully, investing deeply in fee. Were bonds. Trust becomes valuable, built slowly and maintained intentionally. Resilience shows itself in work. Fields are planted again despite past loss. Tools are repaired and reused. Effort continues not because it guarantees success, but because it sustains life. The memory of loss sharpens appreciation. Simple comforts, warmth, food, rest, are noticed more readily. Gratitude becomes quieter but more sincere. Fear does not prevent joy entirely. It tempers it, adding caution, but moments of happiness still surface. Laughter returns in brief, gentle bursts, often surprising those who hear it. Children grow up absorbing both fear and resilience, without distinguishing between them. They learn caution as a norm and strength as expectation. Their understanding of the world is shaped by inherited experience. Over time, fear changes shape. It moves from immediate threat to distant possibility. People remain alert but not frozen. Awareness replaces panic. Memory shapes decision-making. Choices are made with long-term survival in mind. Risk is weighed carefully, ambition moderated by experience. Resilience strengthens identity. Communities define themselves by endurance rather than expansion. Stability becomes more valued than growth. The past is not romanticized. Loss is acknowledged plainly. The suffering endured does not become a source of pride, but of understanding. Art and expression reflect this balance. Songs are quieter, themes reflective. Creativity serves as a vessel for memory, allowing emotion to exist without overwhelming daily life. Fear teaches limits. People recognize what cannot be controlled and focus instead on what can be managed. This acceptance brings a certain peace. Resilience emerges most clearly during hardship. When challenges arise, communities respond with patience rather than panic. Experience guides action. The memory of isolation informs future closeness. Gatherings resume cautiously, appreciated deeply. Connection feels earned rather than assumed. Even as time passes, reminders surface unexpectedly. A familiar illness, a harsh winter, an unexplained death can awaken old concerns. These moments are met with calm rather than alarm. Fear becomes a background presence rather than a driving force. It informs, but does not dominate. Life proceeds with awareness rather than avoidance. Resilience manifests in adaptability. People adjust quickly to change, shaped by the knowledge that stability can be fragile. Flexibility becomes strength. The balance between memory and forward movement defines daily life. Neither is allowed to overwhelm the other. The past informs the present, but does not confine it. Communities preserve memory through tradition rather than monument. Rituals evolve quietly, incorporating lessons learned without explicit reference. Resilience passes forward through behavior more than words. Children observe endurance modeled daily. Strength becomes habitual rather than heroic. Fear fades slowly, never fully gone. But transformed into respect for uncertainty. This respect encourages preparation without obsession. Life continues within this balance. People work, rest, gather, and reflect, guided by what they remember and what they have learned. Memory becomes a foundation rather than a burden. Fear becomes caution rather than paralysis. Resilience becomes the steady force that carries life forward. In this way, the experience shapes not just a generation, but those that follow. The imprint remains subtle, woven into attitudes and habits. The world does not return to innocence, but it does not remain broken either. It settles into a deeper awareness of fragility and strength coexisting. Through memory, fear, and resilience, life finds its rhythm again, not untouched, not unscarred, but enduring. This endurance defines the survivors more than the loss ever could. They continue quietly, shaped by what they remember, guided by what they fear, sustained by what they have learned to endure. Night arrives gently now, without urgency. The sky darkens as it always has, but the feeling that settles with it is different from before. There is less expectation, less certainty, and yet a deeper awareness of the moment as it exists. People prepare for rest slowly. Doors are checked, fires banked low, animals secured. These small rituals carry comfort, familiar actions repeated night after night. Routine becomes a quiet promise that life continues. Homes feel different in the dark. Rooms hold fewer voices, fewer movements. The air is still, shaped by the day's labor and lingering thoughts. Silence settles easily, no longer strange. Those who lie down notice their bodies first. The weight of fatigue feels earned. Muscles ache, but the ache is steady known. Rest comes not from ease, but from necessity. The mind drifts through memories without effort. Images surface softly, fields, faces, moments of loss and survival. They pass without resistance, part of an internal landscape shaped by experience. Fear no longer rushes in at night as it once did. It exists, but it rests alongside acceptance. The darkness is no longer filled with constant anticipation, only quiet awareness. Breathing slows. Each breath confirms presence, another small continuation. Sleep is approached gently, not forced. The body knows when to let go. Outside, the world remains unchanged in its rhythms. Wind moves through trees, distant animals call. The night carries on without concern for human memory or fear. Inside, the sense of safety is relative but real. Walls may be thin, comfort simple, yet they provide enough shelter for rest. That is sufficient. Children fall asleep more easily than adults. Their dreams blend caution and imagination, shaped by what they have absorbed rather than what they fully understand. Sleep comes as an escape and a renewal. Adults linger longer in thought. They consider the coming day, but not too far ahead. Plans remain close, practical. The future is not ignored, just PT at a manageable distance. The bed feels familiar beneath them. Straw shifts, blankets settle. Comfort is not softness, but familiarity. The body relaxes into what it knows. Prayer, if offered, is brief and personal. Words are chosen carefully or not at all. Faith rests quietly, no longer seeking explanation. The darkness feels complete now. Without crowds or noise, night deepens fully. Stars appear sharper, more noticeable. The sky feels larger, unchanged by human loss. Sleep arrives in stages. Thoughts loosen, edges blur, awareness fades without resistance. Rest is accepted as necessary, not indulgent. Dreams carry fragments of the past and present. They do not follow logic, only feeling. Loss and survival coexist without conflict. Those who wake briefly in the night listen. Silence reassures rather than alarms. The absence of sound feels normal now. The body turns, settles again. Sleep resumes easily. The mind trusts the night more than it once did. Morning will come, as it always does. This knowledge carries quiet comfort. Survival has proven that continuity exists even in altered form. The world outside may be changed, but the cycle of rest remains intact. Night still offers pause, recovery, and distance from effort. As sleep deepens, the weight of the day lifts. Labor, fear, and memory soften at the edges. For a while, there is only rest. In this state, life feels simple. Breath in, breath out. Presence without demand. The changed world does not intrude into sleep as sharply anymore. It waits patiently, knowing that rest is part of endurance. Those who sleep carry resilience forward without effort. Their bodies repair quietly, preparing for another day of adaptation. Night becomes a place of trust again. Not because danger is gone, but because living has continued despite it. Sleep does not erase memory or fear, but it tempers them. It allows space for renewal. In this changed world, falling asleep becomes an act of confidence, a belief, however quiet, that waking is likely. Darkness holds gently rather than tightly. It does not threaten, it rests alongside life. The village sleeps, scattered and thin, yet connected through shared rhythm. Breath rises and falls behind closed doors. Somewhere between wakefulness and dream, acceptance settles fully. The world is not what it was and never will be again. Yet it is livable, it is survivable, it is present. Sleep takes hold completely now. The night passes without demand. In the stillness, endurance rests, gathering strength without effort. And so, in a world reshaped by loss and learning, people sleep, not untouched, not unafraid, but steady. Morning will return. Life will continue. For now, rest is enough.